Here's a draft for a gripping 2,000-word story titled "The Sun Could Destroy the Earth in 2025." Hashtag the sun could destroy the Earth in 2025. It began with a flicker. Not in the stars, not in the vast cosmic darkness, but on the screens of scientists in observatories around the world. Data streams turned erratic, graphs spiked into chaotic peaks, and quiet hums of solar activity turned into violent roars. By January 2025, the sun had entered an unprecedented phase of hyperactivity. Its surface churned with massive solar flares, casting out streams of radiation so intense that satellites began to fail. The northern lights stretched far south, painting skies over cities like New York and Tokyo in haunting shades of green and red. At first, governments downplayed the event. A natural solar cycle, they said. No cause for alarm. But Dr. Elena Navarro, an astrophysicist at the European Space Agency, knew better. "The sun is changing," she whispered, staring at the simulation on her screen. A superflare, a solar event capable of wiping out Earth's magnetic shield, was imminent. Chapter 1. A warning ignored. Dr. Navarro's warnings reached the desks of world leaders in February 2025. Her calculations were terrifyingly precise. If the superflare hit, Earth's power grids would collapse, communication systems would fail, and the atmosphere would be stripped of its protective layers. It wasn't just an extinction-level event, it was an obliteration-level event. In an emergency UN meeting, scientists debated. Some claimed Navarro's models were exaggerated, citing that no superflare had been recorded in human history. But deep down, even the skeptics felt the chill of her calculations. Meanwhile, the sun's behavior became impossible to ignore. By March, power outages rippled across continents as geomagnetic storms bombarded Earth's magnetosphere. The auroras were now visible even in equatorial regions, turning the night skies into a surreal apocalypse. And yet, humanity remained divided. Some clung to hope, believing technology or divine intervention would save them. Others succumbed to despair, retreating into survival bunkers or chaotic nihilism. Chapter 2. Earth Engaging. April 2025. The flare came sooner than expected. At 3:42 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, satellites picked up an X-class solar flare, the largest ever recorded. A coronal mass ejection, CME, 10 times the size of Earth, was heading straight for the planet at a speed that defied previous models. The world had 72 hours. Dr. Navarro and her team scrambled for solutions. In a frantic meeting with global leaders, she proposed a desperate plan: Earth Engaging. The idea was radical. Using Earth's most advanced nuclear arsenals, humanity would detonate coordinated explosions in the upper atmosphere, creating a temporary electromagnetic shield strong enough to repel the CME's impact. "If we fail," Navarro said, "there will be no second chance." The decision was made. The project was named Operation Aegis. Chapter 3. Unity in Chaos. For the first time in decades, nations set aside their differences. Russian and American warheads, Chinese and European satellites, Indian and Japanese supercomputers, all worked in unison to execute Operation Aegis. Around the world, people prepared for the worst. Cities emptied as families fled to underground shelters. Governments issued survival manuals for a post-apocalyptic Earth. Religious leaders called for mass prayers, while scientists worked without rest. The sun burned brighter, its rage visible even during the day. The air crackled with static electricity, and Earth's magnetic field wavered like a dying heartbeat. Chapter 4. The Final Hour. May 2025. The Day of Reckoning. The nuclear warheads launched simultaneously from silos, submarines, and space stations. Explosions lit up the stratosphere, creating an artificial shield. From the ground, it looked like a second aurora, an eerie, man-made glow fighting against the sun's fury. The CME hit. For 7 hours, the world held its breath as the artificial shield absorbed the brunt of the solar storm. Satellites burned out, power grids failed, and Earth's surface trembled under the electromagnetic assault. And then, silence. Chapter 5. A New Dawn. When the skies cleared, humanity emerged to a changed world. The shield had worked barely. Most of Earth's electronics were fried, leaving billions in darkness. The death toll was catastrophic, but the planet itself had survived. Dr. Navarro looked at the smoldering horizon. She knew humanity had only bought time. The sun was still a ticking time bomb, and Earth's survival depended on finding long-term solutions to cosmic threats. In the aftermath, humanity vowed to unite, not just against solar storms, but against every existential threat. Space programs accelerated, global cooperation strengthened, and for the first time, humans saw themselves not as nations, but as a species bound to a fragile world. Epilogue. By December 2025, Earth had begun to rebuild. The auroras faded, leaving behind a scarred but hopeful planet. Dr. Navarro stood under the stars, her eyes fixed on the sun. "You gave us a warning," she whispered. "We'll be ready next time." The sun, serene and golden, continued to shine, as if watching over its resilient children. This story intertwines science, human resilience, and the stark realization of our place in the cosmos. Would you like to expand or modify any part?